Have you ever stopped and wondered who's really running the show in your building? You know, the people in charge of the maintenance, the money, all the day-to-day stuff. Well, that's the management committee, and it's made up of your neighbors. In this explainer, we're going to pull back the curtain and break down the official rules for how this super important group gets formed. We'll look at who can run, who can't, and how it all comes together straight from the Strata Management Act. So, who does run your building? The short answer is the management committee. And they're not just some random group. They're owners, elected by you and everyone else to make the big calls. Honestly, understanding how this committee is built is the absolute first step in making sure your property is in good hands. So, what is this management committee, really? Well, think of it like this. They're basically the board of directors for your building. They're an elected group of owners, and their job is to manage everything you all share: the pool, the gym, security, the gardens, and of course, the finances. They're elected at the annual general meeting to act on behalf of every single owner. All right, here's our game plan for this explainer. We're going to start with the basics, the blueprint for the committee, like its size and the key rules. Then we'll get into the nitty-gritty of who can actually run for a spot. After that, we'll look at what gets you automatically disqualified, and we'll wrap up with a really crucial rule that's all about making sure things are fair for everyone. Okay, first up, the committee blueprint. These are the foundational rules right out of the Strata Management Act that really dictate the size, the structure, and the most important jobs within any management committee. So let's dive into the specifics. The law is actually super clear about how big the committee can be. It has to have at least 3 members, but no more than 14. Now, who decides the exact number? You do. The owners decide together at the annual general meeting. There is one little exception, though. If a development has 3 or fewer owners in total, well, then the committee is just all of them. Simple as that. Now, within that group of 3 to 14 people, there are 3 jobs that absolutely must be filled: the chairman, the secretary, and the treasurer. And here's a detail you might not know. These officers aren't elected directly by all the owners. What happens is, after the main election, the brand new committee members get together and they vote amongst themselves to decide who gets these key leadership roles. And this is where things get really interesting: term limits. So any committee member can be re-elected, sure, but they can't serve for more than 3 consecutive terms. But look, for the big 3, the chair, secretary, and treasurer, the rule is even tighter. They cannot hold the exact same office for more than 2 years in a row. It's a smart rule, really, designed to make sure leadership gets rotated. So, let's say you're thinking, hey, maybe I should join the committee. What actually makes someone eligible to put their hand up? Let's walk through the official checklist. Getting on the ballot is pretty straightforward. First things first, you have to be at least 21 years old. No getting around that. After that, you just need to tick one of these next 3 boxes. You can be a proprietor, that's just the legal word for an owner, or a co-owner. Or if a company owns a unit, they can nominate someone to represent them. And finally, if someone owns 2 or more units, they can nominate an immediate family member to run. You know, a question that comes up all the time is, what if someone wants to run, but they can't physically be at the big election meeting? Can they still get elected? And the answer is yes, but, and it's a big but, only if 2 very specific things happen. First, they have to give their consent in writing beforehand. And second, they must appoint a proxy, that's someone who's legally allowed to vote for them, to be there at the meeting. All right, let's look at the flip side of the coin. Just like there are rules for who can run, there are some very clear, hard and fast rules for who cannot. These are the automatic disqualifications, the things that will stop a nomination right in its tracks. And these rules are non-negotiable. The biggest one, and the one that catches people out the most, is being in arrears. If you owe any money to the management, whether it's for maintenance fees or the sinking fund, 7 days before the election, you are not eligible to run. Full stop. Second, a proxy's job is just to vote for someone else. They can't run for office themselves. And finally, to keep things fair, only one co-owner from a single unit can be a candidate at the same time. Okay, let's get into what might be the trickiest, but also one of the most important rules for forming a committee. It's something called the threshold number, and its whole purpose is to make sure that no single large owner can just take over the entire committee. So what is this threshold number? In a nutshell, it's a cap. It puts a hard limit on how many people connected to one large owner can sit on the committee at the same time. This could be the owner themselves or people they've nominated.
The entire point of this rule is to maintain a healthy balance of power and make sure there's a real diversity of voices making decisions.
Honestly, the best way to wrap your head around this is with a quick example. So imagine our building has its annual meeting and decides, okay, we're going to have a 10-person committee this year. And let's say there's one big proprietor, we'll just call them owner A, who owns 35% of the total share units. The question is, how many committee seats can they control?
So the Act tells us to do two quick calculations. First, we figure out their proportional share. That's 10 members times their 35% ownership, which gives us 3.5. We just drop the decimal, so that's 3. Second, we calculate a hard cap, which is always 49%. So 10 members times 49% is 4.9. Again, we drop the decimal, which gives us 4.
And here's the crucial final step. You always take the lower of those two numbers. In our little example, the lower number is 3. So that's it. That's the threshold number. It means that owner A, even with their massive 35% ownership, can only have a maximum of 3 people on that 10-person committee. It's a really powerful rule for preventing a monopoly.
And really, all of this brings us back to one fundamental point, which is stated right there in the law. Ultimately, the power rests with the owners. Remember, it is you and your neighbors who get together at the general meeting and decide how big the committee will be in the first place. That decision sets the stage for everything else. It all starts with you.
So there you have it, the essential playbook for building a strata management committee. It's a system designed to be fair, clear, and hopefully effective. And that really leaves us with just one last question for you to think about when it comes to your own building. Now that you know the rules, is your committee truly built for success? Thanks for tuning in to this explainer.